Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to a game that I've covered extensively over the last year on this channel, and that is Strategic Command World War II World at War. In today's video we're going to be starting a brand new series in this game. Our previous Let's Play series, which went about 80 episodes I think it was, focused on the Axis war effort. In this video we're going to be starting a Let's Play series focused on the Allies. So I'm hoping that we can win the war earlier playing as the Allies, but I don't really know what to expect. This may be a short-run series, or it may be a long one, depending on how things go. To me, these kind of games always play better when you're playing as the attacker and you're the one dictating actions. And when you're on the defensive, it takes a little bit of the interesting play out of the game. If it's too scripted to history, then it feels a little bit like just, you know, not a ton of options. If we're playing as the Allies, we're probably going to be just kind of a punching bag for a while. So I don't really know what to expect other than to say that I'm a little bit skeptical. These types of games, when you start in 39, especially from the German point of view, and everything you're doing is dictated by the Germans for the first several years of the war, it'll be interesting to see how much there is for us to do as the Allies. And if it doesn't go well, we may end the series early. But with that being said, I figured we'd go ahead and give it a shot. So we're going to play the September starting date. We could go with something more interesting and go to the 1943 scenarios where the Allies are turning the tide with the counteroffensive. But I'd rather go for the Grand Campaign if this is going to work. Our victory conditions for the Allies are going to be control Berlin, Rome, Paris, London, Moscow, Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Seoul, Chongqing, and Delhi. At least for a decisive victory. Okay, so that's fine. We'll go ahead and play the campaign. It's going to pop up here. We're going to play as the Allies. The Axis will get to move first. Difficulty level, I guess, do I want to put it on Veteran? Do we want to put it on Intermediate, Veteran, Expert, Veteran, Intermediate? Let's at least put it on Veteran to make things a little bit more challenging. We did have a pretty challenging game when we played as the Axis, but that was also the first time for me playing through the whole game. So we'll bump the difficulty up a bit. It's 50% more difficult. The enemy gets a 1 spotting bonus, a 1 experience bonus, and a 10% income bonus. So we'll go from there. We're going to stick with the 3D units. I know some of you guys like the sort of land counter style of sort of NATO symbols, but frankly, I like the 3D units. That's just me. I'm not a super hardcore war gamer in terms of like board war games where I know NATO counters are more popular, but in any event, it's what I like. And we'll just kind of leave everything the way it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. And away we go! Okay, so the game starts off with a air raid siren and a little news bulletin explaining that German troops are invading Poland. Nazis are bombing Warsaw. Now, the game starts off with Axis units moving first, so we get an Axis turn before the Allies get to move. So this may fit with some of what you guys had been looking for in the game, and that is starting with... well, actually, no, I guess it's still going to be the Axis moving first and then us responding, but in any event. Okay, so I'm assuming the Germans will overrun Poland relatively easily. I don't really know I don't know any of the tactics for the Allies really to try and hold their ground longer. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't think there's anything we can do to save Poland. Can we save France? I don't know. We'll see. You can see the Japanese here are also attacking in China, and I have no idea how to play as China. So this is going to be an interesting game. The good thing is, as the Allies, we do have a little bit of a buffer to kind of lose, right? Like if we lose in Poland, if we lose in France, that's to be expected. So in terms of having a little bit of flexibility or a little bit of give, you know, it shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, we can lose for the first year and still be okay, I think. You can see German armor moving around our flanks, taking out our cavalry, and isolating various infantry units here. The Axis is probably reasonably scripted, I assume, in some of their early moves in this game. I don't even know what a good defensive strategy for Poland would be. Part of me says just spend my ops points and see if I can get my air units out to, like, England or something like that. But I don't even know if that would work because of the way that the supply system works. They might be out of supply. Okay, so German units on the French border are digging in. Canada is declaring war on Germany. Australia is declaring war on Germany. South Africa is declaring war. Are we just going to go through all the different colonies here? France. Not a colony. Okay, so convoy routes are beginning. And that wasn't too long or too bad of a first turn, at least in terms of how much time we had to wait. You can see here the Polish lost quite a few units. They lost a cavalry brigade, three cavalry brigades destroyed, 2 armies destroyed, and a 3rd cavalry brigade destroyed. World War II has begun. Canada, Australia, South Africa, the United Kingdom, France declare war. Canada begins convoy routes to the UK. Okay, so we are immediately met with a British decision. Secretary of State for War, Leslie Hoare-Belisha. Now that we are at war, it is expected of us that we will send a British expeditionary force to France, just as we did in the last war. Arrangements are in place for the BEF to be transported across the Channel and deployed around Rouen on the 1st of October 1939. Once there, these forces could provide a boost to the French morale, which is rather fragile. If we do not send the BEF to France, then French national morale will fall by 1,000 points, and the USA will move 5 to 8% away from the Allies. Would you like to deploy the BEF to France? Yes. Or risk the consequences of deploying yes, in France. Or risk the consequences of deploying it in the UK instead. If you say yes, and it is strongly recommended to do so, then at the start of October, the BEF will deploy in Rouen, in northern France. It will consist of a strength of 5 HQ, Lord Gort, 1 strength army, 8, and 2 strength 5 corps. Once the BEF are in France, their presence will provide a small boost to French national morale. If you say no, then the BEF will deploy to Portsmouth in southern England on the 15th of September 1939. However, by saying no, France will be shocked at our lack of support, and French national morale will decrease by 1,000 points. Isolationists in the USA will also make capital out of our lack of desire to defend our French allies, and this will move the USA 5 to 8% away from the Allies. If the BEF isn't sent to France, but other British units were sent to France before France falls, they could provide the bonus to French morale, but the initial shock to French morale is unlikely to be made good. So why would you ever say no? Like, it doesn't really give me a reason to say no, so I guess we'll go ahead and deploy yes. Red Army headquarters. Now that the German invasion of Poland is underway, it is important that we do not show weakness and let the Germans gain the whole country. It is therefore important that we fulfill our side of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact by marching into Poland, even though it will cause some slight harm to our relationship with the UK and France. Would you like to order the Red Army to prepare for an advance into Poland? Notes, the decision will play a key role in determining the boundaries between Germany and the USSR after Poland has fallen. If we do not advance into Poland, the Germans will have a good starting point from which to invade the USSR. Given our current poor state of readiness for war, saying no could put us in a very compromising situation. Saying yes and advancing into Poland will also provide us with the possibility of increasing our income by capturing Lowell and holding Fortress Brest-Litovsk. We will be able to slow the German invasion that is bound to come within the next few years. Note that even if we do say yes to this and invade, it is possible for the Germans to refuse to honor the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and force it to withdraw from Poland. Designer note, the advance is fully handled by the engine, so it is neither possible nor required to manually move Red Army forces into Poland. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. All right, so apparently we get to command Russia, while we also get to command the Western countries, even though Russia is not yet at war with Germany. So that's something, I guess. Yeah, so interestingly, that is pretty interesting. Meanwhile, we've got a lot of countries to manage. It's not quite so simple as when you've got like 2 countries to manage. All right, so first things first, for the French, we're going to go ahead and reinforce these troops on the border to level 10. Spend our money doing that. These guys can't reinforce because apparently France has no money. God, France is like weaker than frickin'... Ah! France appears to be weaker than the gosh darn... what do you call it? I don't even know the word I'm trying to use. France is weaker than the Italians, it would seem. All right, so at least the French Navy's at full strength. Let's move these troops to the border, I think. I mean, we're going to... that's the thing, is this historical French strategy of moving into Belgium when the Germans attack. And we kind of have to do that. We don't get a lot of income as France. I have no reserves in the event that they break through. I could move some reserves up from the Italian border. Be interesting is France to declare war on Belgium and knock Belgium into the side of the Axis powers. That would be very interesting. Okay, let's hit here. Oh, German interceptors! No! Our bombers! Alright, so they didn't do much damage. We'll attack with this army here. Alright, so we launched a limited French counterattack out of Strasbourg to the north. Did some damage to German units there. But I have deployed my forces primarily in a defensive manner. Meanwhile, the Royal Navy. We're going to go ahead and set the Royal Navy on the German supply lines here. Out of Norway. I'm going to move... I don't know. I'm assuming we want to move some, like, destroyers across their potential path for advance. I don't know if I have enough destroyers to do that. I don't want them too close to the German coast, though, obviously. So my initial thought is to move as many destroyers as we can to build a bit of a barrier between ourselves and the Atlantic. So put one here in the Straits of Dover. That'll be a French destroyer. But we've got more heavy ships than we have light ships to be able to do this. I guess I could put light cruisers here too. I don't really know. Light cruisers do seem to do some damage to subs, though, in my experience. Those are heavy. These are battleships. This is the Hood. I'd like to try and knock out the enemy subs if we can. So these guys to Raider. Close that convoy route. Meanwhile, moving our battleships north. Okay. Moving our carriers out this way too. Move a cruiser down here also. Alright, so we're doing that. Meanwhile, do we have destroyers in Canada? No units in Canada? Canada's completely empty of units at the moment. Alright. Do we control the United States also right now? We do. Although by the looks of it, the U.S. is not mobilized, so they also have very little money to do anything with. You can see we can reinforce very little. They have 35 MPPs because they are at peacetime right now. Yeah. Can we reinforce the aircraft here up to full strength? We can, just barely. All right, so we've got 2 carriers on the west coast for the U.S., both at full strength right now. East coast, the U.S. doesn't really have a navy. So we'll work on getting these fighters up to full strength. It's going to take a while. These French battleships, I don't even think they're worth reinforcing. I don't really know, though. I'm kind of tempted to move the French heavy ships into the Mediterranean to use them against the Italians when they eventually do become involved in the war. See if we can use the French ships as kind of like sacrificial. Because Italy's not yet in the war on the side of the Axis. So I think what I'll actually do is try and create like a grand fleet in the Atlantic. And then you lead with the French ships to crush the Italian fleet, which is down here at Taranto. Before they can really do much of anything. Alright, so let's move these guys forward. Let's see. Do we have troops? We do have troops down here. So I don't even know where to start. I've got all these colonial garrisons and things like that. South African headquarters and troops. We don't yet have a Cape to Cairo railway, do we? Nope. So we can't even get those guys north. Meanwhile, the French wouldn't be too poor off if they transported some of their troops from North Africa to Europe, but for the moment we're going to have to hold off on doing that, I think. For the British, let's reinforce their bombers. The British have a better amount of money, but not a ton. We'll probably just save what little British money we have left. I guess no, can we reinforce these guys? Why can't we reinforce these guys? Is their supply too low? What if we move these guys back here? Okay, the British. Yeah, like I don't know why I can't reinforce any of these guys. What about these guys? What can they reinforce to? 7? Reinforce. The troops in Khartoum, I think, will move to Egypt and try and crush the Italians. My goal in Africa is to be very aggressive. As soon as the Africa Corps gets deployed, I plan to move with them. As it is, we spent the British money, we spent the French money, we spent the American money. So I guess the Russian money... I should probably be spending on research too, right? Anti-tank weapons. Each new level increases anti-tank unit values against ground units by 1. Okay, so we want to work on anti-tank units for Russia. So we'll spend all our money on researching anti-tank. We're actually spending 2 chits on that right now. That'll be really important when the Germans attack, because presumably we can have a lot of infantry. If we can up their anti-tank, then they'll be a bunch more effective in that regard. The Russian troops are actually at full strength, which I'm kind of surprised the game represents it in that way. I kind of would have expected them to give them a penalty for the purges. Pull these British subs back a little bit. They're still on the supply line there. Okay, that's probably about good. I mean, we could fly these guys across the channel, I suppose, in the event the Germans start bombing troops. Do we want to bomb anything? Can we bomb anything? We don't even have the range to bomb anything, do we? All right, let's move these heavy bombers across as well. We can hit something from France. Meanwhile, in Poland, the situation there, not so great. We're going to invade it from Russia, too. Did I turn zones of control on? What the hell did I do there? I don't even know what I clicked. That's weird. Can we get these guys out of here? Escape to supply. Shit, you did no damage. We don't have any money to operate the Polish troops away, do we? I don't have any money to operate the Polish Air Force. Lame. Alright, let's pull these guys back toward Warsaw. I don't think I can move and reinforce at the same time. That's the problem, or that is a problem. But these guys have some level of entrenchment, so we'll probably leave them in the fortifications, even though they're going to get mauled pretty bad. God damn it, Polish troops, do something. Alright, let's reinforce these guys. These guys are on the front where they're most likely to be useful. Pull him back in front of Moscow. We're not going to attack with him. So at least 2 enemy attacks will need to be used up ahead of getting to Warsaw, not Moscow. And then these guys will probably engage here. I'm hoping we can hold out one more turn and get into mid-October. Hoping. We will obviously see if that's the case. We're pulling all the troops from the Russian border, even though we know that the Russians are going to attack. Ah, man. I'm weak as Poland. Alright, so there's that. Meanwhile, Australian forces... Let's probably just reinforce the Navy first. Can't reinforce any of them. Great. Naval units also can't operate. Okay. So, or wait, that's Canada that has the 100 MPPs. Or no, that's India that has the 100 MPPs. All right. So, to China. Let's go ahead and maybe reinforce these guys. It's relatively cheap to do it. Do I want to do it, though? I think we'll reinforce the troops that are in the fortifications first. Troops in the city. Okay, so we reinforced sort of our central position here. Let's reinforce these guys in central China as well. These headquarters. That's pretty much all our money, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we've got some fighters, but probably not super useful. Changsha is a key city for us. We don't want to lose. All right. So can these engineers dig in? They can build fortifications pretty much anywhere. I don't know what to do with any of these guys yet, though. I don't know what to do with them. Move that headquarter unit forward to give them a little bit better supply. Same here. Should give us a slightly better supply situation. Yeah, let's build forts here. So we'll build a fort line along this way here north. We'll probably lose these two cities, but if we can build a new fort line between Yicheng and Changchao, that might be helpful. So hopefully those engineers will be useful for that. We've spent the Chinese money. We've spent all the other teams' money. I think we just need to look at, is it India? And, yeah, I mean, so here's, like, if we research, if we do R&D for India, I don't have money to research infantry level weapons yet. And I lose half my income if I don't spend it. So I kind of should spend it, right? We only have 90 left after doing that. What if I purchase stuff? Like, what do I... So is anything in my price range? Not really. Garrisons, that's about it. Diplomacy... England apparently is the only one with diplomacy chits, and I don't have funds there. I don't get to use the funds of India. So I guess we'll just take a hit on that, maybe? Actually, let's build another garrison unit. I can use it for securing, like, Iraq and other places like that. So let's purchase a Indian garrison unit. And we'll send them to Kuwait eventually. Like these guys down here, if I can get them... Oh, wait, no, down here. So if I can get these guys leveled up a bit, like I'd like to throw them on transports and maybe send them to Egypt or something to that effect. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Meanwhile, actually, France, if I could, I should pull these guys out too. Are there partisan units that are operating against us? That's interesting. I could pull troops out of Africa for France and not get penalized. In any event, I think the plan will be to pull, as long as I get money for transports, to pull the Algeria Corps and to pull the Syrian Corps and bring them, and maybe the Tunisian Corps as well, into France to help defend against the Germans when they invade. Hopefully not till next year. We'll see. I have no idea what my sort of ship blockade of the North Sea and of the Channel will do, but why don't we do this? Instead of starting every turn with the attack, we've just issued our orders. Let's see what happens. All right, the Red Army begins crossing the border into Poland. Polish morale plummets as news spreads that the Red Army has crossed the border. Lord Lithington, Viceroy of India, is considering declaring India to be a belligerent state on our side today. However, if the Viceroy does declare India to be a belligerent state, then there will not be sufficient time for him to consult either the Indian political leadership or the elected political provincial representatives. This could lead to resentment and possibly even unrest among the population. Should the Viceroy of India immediately declare war on Germany? Note: if the Viceroy decides not to act today, then a contingent of British Indian forces will be transported from India to Egypt. Sorry, if it decides not to act today. And we will leave the Indian Congress to decide when and whether to declare war against Germany. This could take some time, though leaving it to Congress should significantly reduce the chance of any disorder in India. Yeah, let's leave India to decide on her own if she wants to fight. The British Army in India is transferred to Alexandria. Given the pressure China is under, we could help relieve it by facilitating trade with China via the Hanoi-Kunming rail line. China would receive every turn 60 MPPs worth of material to support the war effort via this route, though it will cost 90 MPP to provide the necessary infrastructure required to get it started. For every turn that supplies arrive this way in China, Chinese national morale will be boosted by 250 points. The only problem is the Japanese interest in French Indochina will undoubtedly increase as they seek ways to cut the supply line. Consequently, the Sino-Japanese conflict could spread to Southeast Asia. Yes. I'm assuming, anyway. Yes, I would like to do that. It just means that they may invade Indochina, which they probably will anyway. Norway complains that Allied attacks on its merchantmen. New Zealand declares war on Germany. Axis raiders disrupt South African convoys. There you go. 280 MPP for England. We lost about 10 to the South African convoy route. France gets 129, USA gets 24, minus 90 for the Hanoi-Kunming Railway. USSR collects 65, Poland 19, China 206, India 25. Okay, so I'm assuming now we're going to see the German move. And then we'll probably wrap this turn up. Okay, so you can see they're moving into Krakow. Lots of rail units being moved. The one thing I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, is that the Axis units, or actually rather the AI units, are able to freely operate their units via rail, which is actually a huge advantage for them because when you're playing as the Axis, getting all your forces in place to invade Russia on time is very challenging, and part of the reason it's challenging is just because of the massive cost that sending everybody by rail incurs. Meanwhile, you can see the Germans are attacking toward Warsaw. They have not yet actually gone for Warsaw yet. They're attacking the units around Warsaw. A little bit of casualties inflicted by the Polish there against some German tanks. They're advancing into our rear and driving us back. But really, it's all about having Poland hold out one more week. Because if they do hold out, the next German turn won't be until end of October, which should keep the Germans slightly behind schedule. But they are attacking Molden now, the fortress north of Warsaw, destroying the garrison units to the east of Warsaw, finishing off the Polish cavalry. Wow, okay, so they diverted tanks to take out those Polish tanks. Now they're advancing north. But I don't think there's any way, with all the units they used, I don't think there's any way they're going to take Warsaw before the end of October. Or it'll happen in the next turn, but that'll be at the end of October. So that'll actually be very good for... I would consider that a victory. Polish morale continues to suffer from the German blitzkrieg. The British Expeditionary Force arrives in France. So it gives us a whole bunch more troops to defend France with. Polish morale suffers from loss of from battlefield losses. So obviously Poland's going to fall next turn. But that next turn... I mean, again, we're talking end of October. Look at all those units destroyed. China did lose a corps as well. The importance of the BEF in maintaining French morale. To stiffen French morale in the event of a German invasion, we should maintain a force of no less than 2 units in France. Better still, 5 or more units if they can be made available. Deploy these to defend Paris, northeastern France, or the Maginot Line. If we don't do this, French morale is likely to fall rapidly should the Germans invade, and could lead to a premature surrender. The French rely on us to help them, just as we did in 1914. Let's not let them down. UK Mediterranean Report. Report on Italian preparations for war. Intelligence indicates that Mussolini will start mobilizing should our positions in the Mediterranean appear to be poorly defended. Maintain units at Gibraltar, Malta, Cairo, Tunis, and Damascus. Well, that rules out pulling French troops from Tunis or Syria, I guess. Although we kind of expect him to declare war at some point anyway. All right, new Chinese forces. We'll deploy them where? Here, to defend that railway. Meanwhile, new British forces garrison arriving in India. Okay, so that's our force deployment. We have more money this turn, so we will be able to rectify some issues. But I think that it's about a good time. Although I wish I knew where on the South African convoys these guys were located. But I think that that's about a good time to call this episode. I moved that one unit, but overall you can see Poland's going to fall. That's a given. But we are flooding France with some more troops, so we now have the 4 troops of the British BEF. We could add one additional, although we have 2 units here, so actually we have over 3, 5, 6 British units in France, which should help with French morale. France gets a little bit more money this turn, not much. We can reinforce the troops on the border there. Spend most of the French money probably doing so. Yep. That's pretty much all the French money right there. Trying to reinforce their units. Didn't even touch the air units. Okay. Well, the British probably should reinforce the BEF too. Spend most of our money doing that. Interestingly enough, the British army is better equipped than the French. It's already level 1 pretty much across the board. Can't quite reinforce all the British units there. Okay. So we spent the British money, we spent the French money. All right. Let's see. So I think that's probably about it. I mean, there's more I can do. Obviously, we only just started this turn. But I also don't want to do a whole nother turn in this episode. We're already at over 30 minutes. So I think we'll wrap it up here. We're 2 turns in. It's October 13th, 1939. The German Blitzkrieg in Poland is coming to a conclusion. It will end next turn. The Russians, meanwhile, have sided with the Germans for the time being, and the British are getting ready for a war. So that's the situation right now. We'll see how things play out next time. But until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you once again for watching, and until next time, I'm out.